Hello friends, welcome to the channel. In this video, we would study about the British East India Company. So what had happened was the Portuguese had closely guarded the map of the world which showed various routes from Europe to different countries. And they were successful in keeping this secret for around 80 years. But Francis Drake unexpectedly got this map when he attacked a Portuguese ship. Francis Drake was an Englishman and he had different reputation in different countries. In England, he is known as a sailor. In other European countries, he is known as a pirate. So he came across the map and decided to circumnavigate the globe, which he completed in 1580. This event and the other event, which was the English victory in 1588 over the Spanish Armada, had significant psychological and practical impacts on English people as well as English merchants. The Drake's voyage instilled a sense of pride and confidence in the English seafaring capabilities, and the Armada's victory was successful in creating a perception among the merchants that they could safely expand their ventures without the fear of Spanish attacks. And how come the English traders not want a share for themselves in the lucrative Eastern trade when they got to know about the high profits being earned by the Portuguese? So, in 1599, a group of English merchants formed a company named the Merchants Adventurers. And in the next year, a company named Governor and Company of Merchants of London trading into the East Indies received a charter from the Queen, who granted it the right of exclusive trading. This means that only this company could trade with the East Asian nations, including India. तो इनको मोनोपोली दे दी गई थी ट्रेड करने की, जिससे कंपनी के शेयर होल्डर्स को काफी फायदा हुआ, मगर ब्रिटेन की कॉमन पब्लिक को कोई खास फायदा नहीं हुआ. दिस इज हाउ inequality spreads. So initially, a monopoly of 15 years was granted, and just after 9 years, even before the company established its first factory in India, which was in 1613, the monopoly was extended indefinitely. A lot of controversy also arose because of this. We would see that towards the end of the video in the merger section. Moving to the next section, progress of the English company foothold in the west and south. In 1608, Captain William Hawkins reached Surat with his ship Hector. He met Jahangir only in 1609. Till then, he collected information about the Mughal rule, Mughal emperor, conditions in the country, and the Portuguese tricks in the Mughal court. He met Jahangir in Agra, which was the Mughal capital then. Since he knew the Turkic language well, he was able to converse with the emperor without the aid of an interpreter. This pleased Jahangir very much and he appointed him as a Mansabdar also. This was a good thing about the English East India Company officials that they were able to build a personal rapport with the Mughal rulers, something which the Portuguese, Dutch, and French officials struggled with. Since he was pleased with Hawkins, he granted to the company a number of trading permissions. But William Hawkins could not succeed in getting a permission to establish a factory at Surat. So he left Agra in 1611. In 1611, the English started trading at Masulipatam. All the European powers that visited India were trading at Masulipatam. Then in 1612, when Captain Thomas Best defeated the Portuguese navy near Surat coast, Jahangir was impressed. He was greatly impressed and granted a permission to establish a factory at Surat. So this permission was given in 1613 and the company established its first factory at Surat under Thomas Aldworth. Then in 1616, the company established its first factory in South India in Masulipatam. Thomas Roe, who was the ambassador of James I to the court of Jahangir from 1615 till 1619, secured a number of privileges, including setting up factories at Agra, Allahabad, and Bharuch. He obtained two farmans, one from Jahangir and the other from Prince Khurram. Now, Prince Khurram would later adopt the title of Shah Jahan. These farmans conferred a number of privileges to the English. These privileges included free trade. Free trade means that they would not be charged with any kind of import duty or custom duty, and they would also be exempted from paying inland tolls. And this made the British products cheaper as compared to others. So these were the privileges which Thomas Roe obtained. Now, the English always had this habit of asking way more than what they actually deserved. When they were being given trading concessions, they asked for factories. When they were given factories, they asked for a commercial treaty, and that too within 10 years of arriving in India. So naturally, Thomas Roe could not succeed in securing commercial treaty with Jahangir. Then a pivotal moment in the history of British-India relations occurred when Sultan Abdullah Qutub Shah of Golconda issued a farman, which is also known as the Golden Farman, to the company. It gave the company a number of privileges in the Golconda region, which actually helped it to secure a foothold in the Deccan region and increase its influence over Indian trade and territory. It was given in 1632. So, by paying 500 pagodas per year, the company got the privilege to trade freely in the ports of Golconda. Pagoda is a gold coin. It was being used since the medieval period. It was used for large transactions since it was a gold coin. For large transactions, it was the prevalent unit of currency in entire South India. Earlier, we had seen that the company had obtained two farmans from Jahangir and from Prince Khurram. Now it obtained the Golden Farman. So, very quickly, it was expanding its influence in India, something which the other European powers couldn't achieve. And later, the company would receive the famous Farrukh Siyar's Farman. It was very significant Farman. The company became way more powerful after receiving it. So these are the maps of India showing the kingdom of Golconda. The kingdom was formed from the parts of the modern day states of Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, Odisha, and Telangana. Then in 1633, the factories were established at Hariharpur and Balasore. Hariharpur is in the Mahanadi Delta region. In 1639, the company received a permission to build a factory at Madras. And later, this factory was fortified. It became St. Fort George and replaced Masulipatnam as company's headquarters in South India. Madras also became the company's headquarters in India, and it remained till headquarters shifted to Calcutta in 1772 when the company became powerful in the Bengal region. And that was after the battles of Plassey and Buxar. Then in 1662, marriage happened between King Charles II of England and Princess Catherine of Portugal, and Bombay was gifted as dowry to King Charles II. After 6 years, in 1668, Bombay was given over to the East India Company on an annual payment of £10, and Bombay became the headquarters of company's Western Presidency. Bombay was an important region. Bombay is an important region. It would play an important role in spreading companies' influence and power in West India. Coming to the next section, which is progress of the English company foothold in Bengal. Now, Bengal was an important region. It was a large and a rich province. It was already doing well in trade and commerce. Because of the above 2 points, it was an important province for the Mughal Empire, and the English wanted a commercial and a political control over it. Controlling Bengal means controlling vast resources of Bengal, and using these resources, company would defeat other rulers of the country and acquire their estates. And much later in 1905, the British India government would try to divide Bengal so that the forces in Bengal do not become a threat to its rule in India. In 1651, Shah Suja who was the Subedar or governor of Bengal, allowed the English to trade in Bengal for an annual payment of rupees 3000 in lieu of all duties. This means that the English company do not have to pay any kind of duty. They have to pay rupees 3000 per year and they can trade in Bengal. Factories were started in Kasim Bazar, Patna, and Rajmahal. However, despite various privileges which the company had, its business was regularly obstructed by custom officers in the local checkposts who asked for payment of tolls. Now, this was because of high corruption among the toll officers and the company officers, and the influence of the local Indian traders who were not happy with the privileges which were being given to the English company. So William Hedges appealed to Shaista Khan for redressal of grievances. The company also wanted to build a fortified settlement at Hooghly like it had done in Madras. But nothing came out of the appeal, and the hostilities between the Mughals and the English East India Company started. In 1686, after 4 years, the Mughals sacked Hooghly, and the English also retaliated by attacking the Mughal forts in Bengal. But the important event that happened was the English were forced to leave Hooghly, which had been their main area in Bengal till then. Now, Jock Chadnock, who was the chief agent of the company in the Bengal region, negotiated with the Mughals. He negotiated with none other than Aurangzeb and signed a treaty with the Mughals. He was allowed to return to Sultanuti and establish a factory there. He made Sultanuti the headquarters of the Bengal region because of its good defensible position. Later, Sultanuti and two other villages would grow to become Calcutta. Now, Job Chadnock is also considered as the founder of Calcutta because some historians believe that he had settled people in the otherwise uninhabited Sultanate. But many historians counter this claim and believe that Sultanate already had a population even before the English arrived in India. This is the pic of Job Chadnock. This is the map of West Bengal. This is Kolkata and this is Hooghly. You can see from this map the good defensible position of Sultanate. It is on the eastern bank of the river Ganga. Also in the north and south, it is surrounded by two other water bodies. Now this type of defensible position was not available in Hooghly. Hence, the British found it difficult to counter the attacks of the Mughals in Hooghly. But in Sultanate, because of its good defensible position, the English were in a better position to counter the attacks of the Mughals. Moving ahead, in 1691, the English received the imperial Farman by the Mughals and they were again allowed to continue their trade in Bengal on payment of rupees 3000 a year in lieu of all duties. Then in 1696, a zamindar named Tobha Singh rebelled and the English found the excuse they were looking for to fortify their settlement in Sultanate. Earlier, when they had tried to fortify the settlement in Hooghly, the Mughals attacked and did not allow them to do so. But this time they were successful in fortifying the settlement because of the good defensible position of Sultanate, which made it difficult for the Mughals to attack. The Mughals were always conscious of the fact that a fortified English settlement could become a threat to the Mughal authority in Bengal. Later, this fort was known as Fort Williams in 1700. Then in 1698, the English bought zamindari of three villages, Sultanati, Gobindpur and Kalikata on payment of rupees 1200. Sultanati, Gobindpur and Kalikata, these three villages later grew to become Calcutta. Fort William became the headquarters of the Eastern Presidency in 1700. Since someone has to be made the president of this presidency, so Charles Iris was made the president. We do not know much about this guy. Now let's come to the most famous and important Farmans of the modern Indian history, the Farrukhsiyar's Farmans. Following are the reasons for giving these firmans. First is the political reason. Aurangzeb was the last powerful ruler of the Mughal Empire. After his death, weak rulers ascended the imperial throne. Court politics increased to such extent that rulers were in constant threat that they could be deposed anytime. And various regional powers exerted their independence. In such circumstances, Farrukh Siyar was of the opinion that the English could provide political and military support to him, which he could use to consolidate his position and power against the rivals and regional threats. Then, second is the economic reason. The Mughal economy at that time had become stagnant, and encouraging trade with the English could actually boost the economic activity in the empire. Then third is the role of William Hamilton. Farooq Siyar was an opium addict and he suffered from diseases. Now the medical treatment he received from Hamilton, who was employed as a doctor in the company, played a key role in developing a favorable attitude towards the company. There are some other reasons why Farooq Siyar gave the Farmans, but these three are important reasons. The Farmans were given by Farooq Siyar, who was the Mughal emperor from 1713 till 1719. John Sarman had led the English mission to the Mughal court. The Farmans were obtained in 1717 and valuable privileges were given in Bengal, Gujarat and Hyderabad region. These Farmans were so significant that they were considered as the Magna Carta of the company. So let's see the important terms of the Farmans. In the Bengal region, three important privileges were given to the company. The first privilege continued from the earlier Farman, which was exemption from duties on payment of rupees 3000 per year. The company had also enjoyed this privilege previously in the Bengal region. The second privilege allowed the company to issue dastaks, which were trade permits or passes. Now, by presenting these dastaks at checkposts, company officers were exempt from paying duties or tolls. Essentially, the dastaks were the means by which the first privilege of duty exemption was implemented. Now, these dastaks were misused by company officers for their own private trade. As a result, these officers became extremely rich while the company itself began to suffer losses. So, yes, that's true. The company was also suffering losses because of the misuse of dastaks. Then, the third privilege that the company could rent more and more land around Calcutta. For the Hyderabad region, they retained the existing privilege of free trade and they had to pay existing rent for Madras. So nothing new was given to the company in the Hyderabad region. In the Surat region, the company was exempted from paying all duties for an annual payment of 10,000 rupees. And now, by this Farman, the company at Bombay could mint its own coin, which could be used throughout the Mughal Empire. The usage of company minted coins led to economic penetration and increased influence of the British East India Company in the Mughal Empire's economy. This type of privilege should not have been given to the company. Whatever may be the pros of it, but this privilege gradually led to greater economic dependency on the company. Now let us look at the consequences of these farmans. The English goods became cheaper in the market and more competitive because now the English goods were exempted from any kind of duties or inland tolls, which considerably brought down the cost of English goods. Then the profit of the company increased and it reinvested its profit in expanding its trade and military powers. So we can see that the company is actually reinvesting the profit to make itself more powerful. Then the third point is it established more factories at strategic locations. More factories were established at port sites, which gave the company a leverage over other European companies. These firmans made the company way more powerful. As such, they began to play an important role in the regional, political, and economic affairs. They began calling shots in some of the regions. This set the stage for the deeper involvement in regional affairs. Now coming to dastaks. Dastaks were trade permits or passes and they were used in Bengal. While this privilege was initially beneficial for the company, it had profound and far-reaching consequences. Dastaks were the passes issued by the company to itself. So as we can expect, the misuse of dastaks started where the officials began to use dastaks for their own private trade and personal gains. It impoverished Bengal since its misuse meant loss of tax revenue. As company officials misused these passes for their private trade, local merchants and economy suffered. The unchecked use of dastaks led to the economic exploitation and unfair advantages that severely disrupted the region's financial stability. The misuse of dastak was also a key reason leading to the Battle of Buxar. We would see this in one of the later chapters. Now, recognizing the detrimental effects of the dastaks, Warren Hastings took a decisive action. He abolished the dastaks in an effort to restore some sort of economic balance in the region. So, Warren Hastings abolished the provision of dastak. He was the first Governor General of Bengal. Now let's come to the last section, merger of two English companies. We had seen earlier that the company had received monopoly to trade indefinitely with the East Indies nations. However, after the English Revolution of 1688, this monopoly was challenged and a rival company was established. The new company sent William Norris to gain trading privileges from the court of Aurangzeb. But this company proved to be a failure, and under the pressure from the crown and the parliament, the new company and the old company were amalgamated in 1708 under the title of United Company of Merchants of England trading to the East Indies. This company is more popularly known as the East India Company, which established the British political power in India. It remained active from 1708 till 1873 when it was dissolved. So with this, we have come to the end of the video. In the next video, we would see the French, the Anglo-French rivalry and the causes of British success in India. So do watch that video and thank you for watching this video.